Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shivadas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th Canto, Chapter 9, Text 10 and 11. Chapter 9 is called The Lord Incarnates as Mohinī-mūrti. So text number 10 first. We'll recite the Sanskrit. Salavrikanam Strinam cha Swarinam Suradvishaha Sakyani Ahu Aniyani Nudnam Vichinvatam Salavrikanam Strinam cha Swarininam Suradvishaha Sakyani Ahurantyani Nutnam Vichintvatam Salavrikanam Strinam cha Svarininam Suradvishaha Sakyanya Huranityani Nutna Vichinvatam Salavrikanam Strinam cha Svarininam Suradvishaha Sakyanya Huranityani Nutna Vichinvatam. Now please chant. Strinam cha Tabaspur. Salam. Anyone online?
Salavrikanam strinam cha. Svairinam suradvishaha. Sakyani yahu anityani. Nutnam vichinvatam.
Anyone else online? That's it. Okay, so the synonyms. Salavrikanam, of monkeys, jackals, and dogs. Strinam cha, and of women. Swarinam, especially women who are independent. Suradvishaha, or demons. Sakyani, friendship. Ahu, it is said. Anityani, temporary. Nutnam, new friends. Nutnam, new friends. Vichinvatam, all of whom are thinking. Translation. O demons, as monkeys, jackals, and dogs, are unsteady in their sexual relationships and want newer and newer friends every day. Women who live independently seek new friends daily. Friendship with such a woman is never permanent. This is the opinion of learned scholars. There's no commentaries, so I'll move to text 11. Shri Shuka Uvacha iti tikshvelitastasya ashvasta manaso suraha jahasur bhavagam viram dadushchamritabhajanam. So, translation. Shri Shukadev Goswami continued, after the demons heard the word of Mohinī-mūrti, who had spoken as if jokingly, they were all very confident. They laughed with gravity, and ultimately they delivered the container of nectar into her hands. Purport. The personality of Godhead in this form of Mohinī was certainly not joking, but talking seriously with gravity. The demons, however, being captivated by Mohinī-mūrti, Mohinī-mūrti's bodily features took her words as a joke and confidently delivered the container of nectar into her hands. Thus Mohinī-mūrti resembles Lord Buddha, who appeared Samohaya Suradvisham, to cheat the Asuras. The word Suradvisham refers to those who are envious of the demigods or devotees. Sometimes an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead cheats the atheists. Thus we see here that although Mohinī-mūrti was speaking factually to the Asuras took her words to be fastidious. How do you say? I don't know how to pronounce this word. F-A-C-E-T-I-O, facetious. Thank you. Indeed, they were so confident of Mohinī-mūrti's honesty that they immediately delivered the container of nectar into her hands, as if they would allow her to do with the nectar whatever she liked. Whether she distributed it, threw it away, or drank it herself without giving it to them. Om Agyana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuron Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantika Manchakopatrubhisha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvichesha Shunyavani Prasthayate Deshatarine. Okay, so we continue our morning classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord comes as Mohinī-mūrti, and this chapter describes how the demons were enchanted by the beauty of Mohinī-mūrti. And what they did, they were very submissive in agreeing to hand over the nectar that they were seeking for. This word in the text number 10, Salavrikanam, describes monkeys, jackals, and dogs. This one word, and it refers to these living entities. They have they're very unsteady. They have unsteady sexual relationship, and they want newer and newer friends every day. So similarly, in this category, we see that monkeys, demons, jackals, they are never satisfied, and they can't seem to have enough of the sexual relationship. Also, it says in the translation, women who live independently seek newer friends daily. Women who are unprotected, uneducated also might resemble this behavior of Salavrikana. In the Bhagavad Gita, we find a verse that speaks about the Icha Dvesha, which Srila Prabhupada mentions. He quotes the first canto, the third chapter in the commentaries to the text number 11. Icha Dvesha Samutyena. Icha Dvesha means desire and hatred that living entities experience out of Dvanda Mohinī-mūrti, out of illusion or bewilderment, which is arising. And that bewilderment makes a living entity think that he is independent and he can sustain himself without any problem. Prahlad Maharaj describes these people as hamameti or griha vratanam, addicted to material sense enjoyment. Adanta gobir vishatam tamisram punapuna sharvata charonanam. They just chew the same thing and think that in the future something will change, something will give them a better taste, but they're actually doing the same thing and they are experiencing the same result. So in this way we can also give this description to the asuras, that not very intelligent, they're also affected by dualities, they're affected by disillusion, and they're easily cheated by Mohinī-mūrti, because the Supreme Lord is the best of the cheaters. And there's some examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, like Vamanadev also came to cheat Bali Maharaj, and there's some other examples. One example in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the Buddhists and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was preaching all over, preaching the message of chanting the holy name and chanting and going in Harinam, Sankirtan in different groups, and convincing people very easily by his pure chanting, by his pure holy name, that this is the way for God realization, this is the way for attaining supreme mercy of the Lord. And he was convincing many people. At that time, there were a lot of people practicing, following after the path of Shankaracharya, the impersonal philosophy, also Patanjali Yoga and all this different paths. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to convince them. But one time in Buddhist also, the path of Buddhism was also quite prominent. So one time in the Madhya Lila, it is described how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met the Buddhist monks, and there was one leader in that group, and they actually presented different arguments, philosophical arguments based on logic and their scripture, logic and reason. It's described in Madhya Lila. It's quite interesting. Let me just look that up here. And although it is described, it was unfit for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to engage in this discussion, because discussions like this for the Vaishnavas, unless he's preaching the message of glories of the holy name and trying to convince them, trying to convince these people, it's not actually conducive. We don't need to engage in these discussions. But of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was to spread the teachings of Sanatana Dharma, chanting of the holy name. So he decided to decrease their false pride and engage in this discussion. And the Buddhists, they based their philosophy on these 9 chief principles. Would you like to hear those principles of Buddhism that were presented by the Buddhists at that time? So I'll just briefly mention it because it's a very lengthy purport. I'm sure most of you came across that purport. Srila Prabhupada, he lists these principles in the commentaries and then he defeats them. So first principle is that the creation is eternal, therefore there is no need to accept the Creator. Second, this cosmic manifestation is false. Third, I am is the truth. Number 4, there is repetition of birth and death. 5, Lord Buddha is the only source of understanding the truth. No one else, just Lord Buddha. 6, the principles of nirvana or annihilation is the ultimate goal. 7, the philosophy of Buddha is the only philosophical path. Number 8, the Vedas are compiled by human beings. Number 9, pious activities showing mercy to others and so on are advised. So this is what Buddhists believed in. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated all of these principles very easily. For example, the way Srila Prabhupada defeats these principles of Buddhism, you can see here that, for example, the first principle is that the creation has always existed. He says, but if this were the case, there could be no theory of annihilation. The Buddhists maintain that annihilation or dissolution is the highest truth. If the creation eternally exists, there's no question of dissolution or annihilation. So he says this argument is not very strong, because by practical experience we see that material things have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The ultimate aim of the Buddhist philosophy is to dissolve the body. This is proposed because the body has a beginning. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation is a gigantic body, but if we accept that it always exists, there can be no question of annihilation. So he's saying that annihilation is birth and death, and also the middle in between. It's something that we can easily notice in life. So therefore, the attempt to annihilate everything in order to attain zero is an absurdity. By our own practical experience, we have to accept the beginning of creation, and when we accept the beginning, we must accept the Creator. So if there's a beginning, if there's someone who's sustaining, and if there's annihilation, there's a Creator also. That's one thing. Then there's so much in the commentaries, but for example, Buddhists maintain that the principle I am is the ultimate truth. But this excludes the individuality. We all know that in Buddhism there's no individuality. So Srila Prabhupada says if there's no I in you or individuality, there's no possibility of argument. The Buddhist philosophy depends on argument, but there can be no argument if one simply depends on I am. There must be a you or another person also. This philosophy of duality, the existence of the individual soul and the super soul must be there, Srila Prabhupada says. And then he quotes Bhagavad Gita verse 2:12. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So like this, he goes on to defeat the arguments, the principles of Buddhist philosophy. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what he did is he also, with his strong logic, he defeated all these principles. And the Buddhists, they were ashamed because everyone started laughing at them. You know, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeating them. And they were so confident and so full of pride. And the Buddhists, they were ashamed, so they left, and then they came back to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they brought some unpalatable dish to offer to him, and they told him that this is Mahaprasad, so you should take it, accept it from us. And what happened, there was a bird who took that little metal tray, whatever the offering was, to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and she brought it in the sky, and then that plate, that big metal plate, fell on the head of the main Buddhist leader in that group, and all the unpalatable dishes fell on their heads. So that was a very embarrassing moment for them. And that the leader actually he felt unconscious because that plate was quite big, and it cut his head, so he was unconscious for a while. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when the Buddhists approached him, he told them that you should come to that Buddhist leader of yours and chant the holy name into his ears. That way he can regain his consciousness. And that's what they did, and eventually at the end they became followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he turned them into the Vaishnavas, again proving that this is how powerful this process of Sankirtan Yagya is, how powerful the holy name is. And there's no way to, even if you use logic, if you use reason, there's no way to argue with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is not possible. So he proves that by his example. So Lord Buddha comes to, as mentioned in his commentaries, to cheat the people at that time. He is known as the Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. He was practicing that. He was practicing this Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. He was famous for that saying. Ahimsa means topmost practices. Paramo Dharma means topmost practice of Ahimsa. And that means that at the time, of course, we all know that when Lord Buddha appeared, it was predicted by Srimad Bhagavatam that people were killing cows and other living entities and different animals. And Lord Buddha, he came to preach the non-violence, taking pity on the poor animals. He wanted for people to stop this violent actions. And therefore, in this way, he had to come up with the idea that they should reject the Vedas. He stressed that if you kill the cows because they are performing sacrifices, then there will be crucial psychological effects upon you. So you should just follow the principles of non-violence and become enlightened. Follow in the footsteps of mine. And in this way, he trained his everyone that he would meet. It's also described how Lord Buddha was enlightened. We understand, of course, that Lord Buddha is a Vishnu avatar, and everything that we see, we try to see in the light of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalo nashta trishayasha puranarka donoditaha. We see everything, learn everything from Srimad Bhagavatam. But Lord Buddha came in a very wealthy family. His mother was Queen Maya, and his father was Sudadhan. And it's described when he took birth, when he came out of the womb of Queen Maya, he actually started walking immediately. And then wherever he would place his feet, there would be lotuses blossoming. So that was very, and his appearance also was predicted by Srimad Bhagavatam and by different sages at the time. And he grew up in this a city called Lumbini. It's now modern Nepal. And at the age of 29, he was actually maintained quite in a very safe environment, in a wealthy house. You know, he didn't have any problems in terms of food, no scarcity of anything actually. His body, food, whatever. So at the age of 29, he went out of the house and he went on his pilgrimage, or went on his search for the truth, for how to stop suffering. Because one thing that he saw is he saw these 4 sights. And the first sight was that he saw an old man, indicating that there will be old age. It's unavoidable. It's a reality of aging, that you become old and then you're close to dying. Then he saw a sick person, right? So there's sickness, there's disease. Then the third thing he saw was a dead body. So there's unavoidable fact of death. And the fourth thing that he saw that inspired him a lot was that he saw an ascetic who was wandering the world in search of absolute truth, or in search of liberation. So then he looked at his wife, and he had a son, Rahula. His wife, his name is Yashodhara. And then he put on simple garments, he shaved his head, and just went into this search for how to stop suffering. And he performed severe austerities for about 6 years, it is described. And then after this, he went under the Bodhi tree in Gaya and sat down and meditated, and then he reached enlightenment. And the rest of his life, after he reached enlightenment, he was preaching and helping making disciples and helping them to also reach that state of enlightenment, nirvana, as described by the Buddhist tradition. And then it was after him when Shankaracharya, the incarnation of Lord Shiva, came to revive the Vedas. And he was arguing that the Vedas are not made by human beings. It's known as Apurusheya. And he would engage in debates with different traditions, Buddhist tradition, and also with the Purva Mimamsa, those who practice just the rituals, the Vedic rituals. And then another thing he did is he created or opened different monasteries so he can propagate the teachings and educate everyone in the Vedas. He wrote commentaries on Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. After him, this was a way how in time the Vedas were restored eventually, because the Lord Buddha, he took attention away from the Vedas to teach the principles of non-violence. And so then came Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya to establish the Dvaita Vedanta philosophy and to establish the Bhakti tradition. And they also commented on the same books, Brahma Sutra, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita, but in a devotional way, and in the way that they would glorify Bhakti. And also they focused on Sharanagati, devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and personal practice, Jiva, and also the Super Soul or living entity and Krishna. This relationship is there. You cannot see it as one. You see it as we all have individuality. I was somewhere in downtown. It says, actually, Market Street. Myself and my people, we were there. I was working on fixing tires some time ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. And we were waiting for the car to be done, so we decided to take a walk. And on that walk, we went in a neighborhood, and we saw a Buddhist temple on Market Street. So really close by to that tire shop. And it was an interesting experience. We went inside, but the door was locked. We tried to go inside, so we knocked on the door. And there was one person, she was working there. She opened the door. This is the Buddhist temple of San Diego. I guess there's not one, there's quite a few of the temples. And we went inside, and she was the only one there. It was a weekday, and she told us that they, in this tradition they practice. This is called, let me see. There's three main traditions of the Buddhists. Pronounce it Theravada, I believe. Then you have the Mahayana, means the great path or the great vehicle, right? Then you have the Vajrayana, right? So those are three main Buddhist paths. I'm not very familiar with this, but something that I looked up just to see how the Buddhists practice. And it's considered that the Theravada path is the most ancient path, and it's based on the teachings of Pali Canon. And it's a school of Buddhism. It is dominant in Southeast Asia. Then you have the Buddhist teachings are quite complex to understand. Then you have the Mahayana, great vehicle, great path. It is the second primary path, branch of Buddhism, practiced in China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia also, Tibet. And from there it developed into Vajrayana. And Vajrayana is, it means the diamond vehicle. It signifies the indestructibility of its wisdom. Okay. And this particular temple practices Mahayana's tradition, like that. So we went inside, and the lady showed us around. We went to see the altar and spent some time. I was asking her some questions about dharma. What is dharma? Do you understanding? She actually couldn't really explain what dharma is. And she told me that she works on full time. She just manages the bookstore and the shop and just guards the temple. So there's no nonsense going on. And it's quite the area is there's homeless people around. So that I can see the reason why she was working there and come into the temple every day. But I went on their website and I found the mission. This is the article they wrote, or the little, it's called Spiritual Life, Our Mission, what it is. And they started with the question, how does one connect with spirituality in our tradition? And this is what they write. They say, our approach on the Nembutsu path is to embrace the spirituality in the midst of everyday life. Should this seem unusual? Upon his enlightenment, the historical Buddha proclaimed that from that instant forth, all sentient beings were enlightened, and not just in temples or meditation halls. That does not mean we are passive in the process. Rather, we discover and develop existing Buddha nature through thoughtful everyday living. For guidance, we benefit from our teachers, and especially the wisdom and compassion of Buddha. So they say that Buddha, upon his enlightenment, he proclaimed that everyone is capable of being enlightened. Everyone is enlightened, and in a tradition, they believe that they're not supposed to be passive. They should come, and Buddhists, they take shelter in different things. One thing that they shelter is sangha, so they come together to learn from one another. So they describe that sangha is very especially important for them. And for guidance, they benefit from teachers, and how they benefit in this particular temple. Because I was kind of surprised that nothing is really happening that often in the temple. Just once a week they gather together. And I asked how many people show up, how many people come. She said just around 10 people show up. And they have online classes, so one thing that kind of helps them to be online classes. Online classes. So in this way they try to develop Sangha. Right? And they also say that we benefit from Dharma, of both the historical Buddha and later teachers in our tradition. So they have teachers who carry on to describe and inspire people in Dharma and the understanding of Dharma. They have some minister, they have a resident minister, some living teachers that mentions who they are. To receive the full benefits of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, so they shelter Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. We can take advantage of Sunday services, memorial services, funeral services, anniversaries, parties, and other celebrations at the temple. We can also take advantage of ongoing classes, seminars, and lectures, and other events throughout the year. So that's a little about their mission. But my main surprise was that not so much going on at the temple. She offered some literature, and I asked her if you have read the literatures and you can explain a little bit about what this is. And she said, I took it home, but I actually never read it. So that was interesting, you know. And we tried to get some more answers, but she couldn't really thoroughly explain. But that lady, she was kind of a little older, but she was happy to talk to people. She was very, very, very grateful. And we were dressed in civilian clothes, myself and Matthias. And she asked us who we are, because we had some bead bags with us, and I was holding my hand in the bead bag. And she wanted to examine the bead bag. She thought that it could be dangerous, you know, maybe I'm carrying a gun or something. Anyway, so she examined, she looked at the beads, and she said, are you Hare Krishnas? You know, she recognized that we are Hare Krishnas. Because back in the days, she would see the devotees at the airport and outside, you know. So she chanted the Hare Krishna mantra with them before I believe she went to the temple, if my memory is not is correct. We talked a little bit about Bhagavad Gita with her. Unfortunately, we didn't have any books, but we reminded her about Hare Krishna, the mantra. And in this way, we took off. So that's a little temple in San Diego, Buddhist temple of San Diego. That's what it's called, on Market Street, and our little encounter with Matthias Prabhu. And I just want to conclude here this small class that Lord Buddha came to make the faithless faithful. Eventually it led to Vaishnav, appearance of the Vaishnav acharyas. Srila Prabhupada wrote an article in 1956, and he was writing about how we as Vaishnavas should think of Lord Buddha today. And there's also a nice purport in this text of the third chapter in the first canto, when the appearance of Lord Buddha is listed. But basically, Srila Prabhupada writes in this article and purport that the animal sacrifices are sometimes recommended to the Vedas on the specific rites. But then he illustrates the point, and we also learn from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the conversation of Kazi, Chand Kazi, that actually sacrifices, the sacrifice, we're not supposed to just kill animals just for enjoyment, sensual enjoyment. Sacrifice sometimes is recommended to, as we know, give a test to the mantras, and the brahmanas, the priest, would bring the elderly cows if necessary, or animals if necessary. So this was done to demonstrate the power of the Vedic mantras. If they perfectly chant it, then the wonders actually appear, that these living entities, they take birth they take newer birth. And so in this age, in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would say that the sacrifice is actually not supported by Shastra. So therefore, we should not, as in the time of Lord Buddha, they were misusing this statement of the Vedas. So we should learn from this that the Vedas are accepted by the Acharya, the commentaries are presented, and the Vedas are supposed to give us the path of as in Srimad Bhagavatam, the path of Ashraya, the path of shelter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this age, the sacrifice that we accept and we learn from the Vedic teachings is chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So Srila Prabhupada stresses that in the commentaries, and he stresses this in this article. And then he also mentions about how incarnation of Lord Buddha was foretold by scripture. And he speaks about meat eating. In some Buddhist tradition, they accept that meat eating is not proper. But although some accept, some don't. So, yeah, there are different contributions being made in this article and the commentaries. But the main ones are mentioned, that Lord Buddha is coming to delude people, to make people faithful to the principles of non-violence, and eventually, in time, to Bhakti tradition. And that is what we understand. So I'd like to stop here and see if you'd like to add anything. I was going to mention also something about the Buddhist Dharma and something about the Eightfold Path and all this details, but I don't think it's necessary. It's described, if you like to see, on various sources on the internet. Yeah, so maybe I'll stop here. If you'd like to add anything, ask questions.
I'd like to add something. I don't know if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 9 of the Madhya Lila, where Lord Chaitanya, on his travels, he meets the Buddhists.
That's what he started with, actually.
I'm sorry?
That's what he started the class with.
Oh, you did?
I mentioned that story.
You mentioned it. Oh, okay. Because this is very dramatic, and I won't go into detail, but...
He went through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. So you read off the quote unquote Buddhist list, and number one dealt with creation, and I was thinking maybe that could there be applicability to actually the spiritual realm, Krishna Loka, and so on, right? So can you read number one again? I'll do a Vijay Krishna.
This is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 9, 49. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the first principle is creation is eternal, therefore there is no need to accept the creator. That's the first one.
Well, the first part of that is that creation being eternal. Could that apply to the spiritual realm, Krishna Loka, etc.? Yeah.
The spiritual realm is not created. It's not called a creation. In fact,
Yeah,
the creation is eternal is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
So it's saying that, okay, they're saying that creation is eternal, so they aren't referring to a creation anymore. So Krishna is referring to this place as the eternal realm rather than Goloka.
Well, I'm just
One small thing I was thinking, in defense of the Buddhist lady who was there and met you and Matthias, I was thinking that in defense of her, you were saying that, kind of subtly saying that you and Matthias were not so impressed by her knowledge and answers and so on. But I feel like, well, one thing is it's tough being put on the spot sometimes, but also I think if she were to show up at a Hare Krishna temple, let's say she shows up at our temple, she'd probably meet Bhakti Joseph on the patio, and he'd say, oh, I'm just kind of doing some maintenance. I kind of make sure there's no riffraff around here. And she may ask a couple questions, and you know, what book do you recommend? He said, well, I have some books at home, but I haven't read them. And I'm just kind of in charge of, you know, the property and so on. And you ask him some questions. He'd give, you know, oh, let's say you take Bhakti Joseph. Let's say she meets one of the brahmacharis. Same thing. She could ask some questions. She could ask the brahmacharis, and which of these books you like? And the brahmachari would say, well, I've read these ones. I haven't read those ones. How long have you been here? 20 years. I'm just joking, but and you'd meet brahmacharis, and they haven't read all the books. And then let's say she asks me some questions, you know, and typically speaking, you know, guests ask me some questions and I fumble them, or I make them convoluted. I don't. Or let's say best case scenario, I give an answer, and it's not even a bad answer, but she doesn't really follow, and she thinks it's a bad answer, you know. So I feel like I worry that people coming to the temple have similar experiences. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess this could be the case easily, not just here, but anywhere in our society. So I guess if people just wander through the temple, sometimes it's they can come to at the time, but nothing is really happening. It's quiet hours, and I would probably just stress or invite her to maybe something that we emphasize developing, like programs where we're ready to host people and ready to communicate with them. Like an example of devotees here, often you also stay with guests and very nicely answer or try to answer their questions and try to speak with them, make a good impression of the temple. So I mean, the emphasis is there. It's just sometimes guests can come at the time when we're doing something else and we're busy and we can rush things and might not be thorough with our time and attention. But one time I was sitting and reading at behind the Krishna lounge on this chair, and a person that Gordon and I met at the parking lot when we went to buy something at the store, some grocery store, and we were just sending flyers to people, not even hoping that anything would come out of it, you know, but just, you know, handing flyers to people, this and that, at the parking lot, stopping people. And then the person recognized us and they said, oh, you guys are Hare Krishna. I always interested to learn more about your tradition. Where are you located? So we handed him a flyer. I don't remember all the details, but maybe like a couple of days later, I'm sitting there in the back and I'm reading something, and he comes over, and he just walks in the back of the Krishna lounge, and he asks us if I can show him around, if I can talk to him, and at that moment I had some free time, so I came up and talked to him, and he requested some books. So there's some also, you can say, positive engagements and some. Sorry to be myself as an example, but yeah, there's some positive interactions with people that we also have. But in her example, also the doors were locked, and they didn't really expect anyone. They don't really see these hours of the day or any hours of the day as an opportunity for people to just walk in. They have a huge parking lot, and it's like empty. I thought it was a little strange, but yeah, I can see the point that you are trying to make, that we can also emphasize the hospitality. How do you say that? Hospitality. Sorry, hospitality more in our temple as well.
Yeah, even while you were speaking, I was thinking just more about how first impressions are so like important for everybody, for all of us. I'm sure we remember our first impressions, and it's so easy for people to have bad first impressions of this temple or of devotees, of Krishna consciousness. It's so easy. And especially with us when we live at the temple, it is very easy and often justifiable to to give people bad first impressions. I've given so many people bad first impressions. I was thinking, like years ago, there was one lady, she was from Russia, she'd never been to a Hare Krishna temple before. She saw Hasyagrami walking down the street, and so she, like days later, she came to the temple, just unannounced, in the middle of the day. She went into the temple room, and one brahmachari, Bhakta, gave her a cup of prasadam, because at the time we were very thorough about it. Any guest you see, give him a cup of prasadam, but he just gave it to her, didn't say anything, just walked away. So she's in the temple room, some man just comes out, gives her a cup of some cake or something, and walks away. Maybe says Hare Krishna. So naturally she thinks, okay, well surely the formality is that I'm supposed to eat this, then that'd be the... But no, she was in front of the deity, and there was a pujari on the altar. And he stops, and he chastised the hell out of her. As she started crying, and she went onto the patio. Unfortunately, someone else saw her, and, consoled her, and she actually came back. I mean, I think very few Americans would have ever come back after that experience. Fortunately, she was Russian, a little more hardy and durable. So she came back, and she came back. She became a serious devotee. She took initiation, but that impression did not help. I think it's so easy to give bad friend. Also, another friend, the last thing, there's another friend, and I've been thinking about this recently because this friend, one devotee, he told me that as a kid, he was, I think he said, now he is clearly open and has been, like, always interested in spirituality and God. And for a long time, he's had like a prayer regimen, praying for 2 hours, something like 2 hours every single day, like, blocking that out of his schedule, 2 hours a day of just like prayer. But he said that as a young boy, somewhere in India, I think he went to some Krishna temple, and he did something wrong. I'm forgetting the details how he told him, but maybe he did something wrong, and the pujari like chastised this boy, it corrected this boy, and it just like he used to remember that. And he said he never went back to a Krishna temple again until however old he is now, decades later, and he comes maybe to this one. So I think that's how the story goes. Mm-hmm. And in between, he looked into different things and so on, but he never went back to a Krishna temple. And then now he comes to this one. Mm. But it's amazing, like decades over a little thing as a kid. These things can stick with you as a kid or whatever age you are. And just decades go by, and I'm not, the Krishna temple is the last place I'm going to go for some spiritual encouragement. So I'm rambling, so I apologize. But I was just thinking about that, how first impressions can be so essential, and we can discard something for lifetimes due to a bad first impression. So as members of the temple, I give so many people bad first impressions when I'm in a hurry. And I say, exactly. The prasadam's over there, help yourself. And sometimes it may be justified, but at least it's something to have to think about.
That's why we have, during the program, the etiquette is that you have some guests greeting, someone who greets the guests. That's really nice when you have someone at the door speaking with you and welcoming you to the temple. What if, yeah. Also, just to conclude with this, I heard this class by Bhakti Tirtha Goswami in Los Angeles, his recent class. And he was also speaking of this one example. I believe the name is Alan, this one devotee that he was cultivating and speaking with so many years ago back in San Diego, I think. And now he just met him in Seattle, like 25 years later, and he was... he had some difficulties in Krishna consciousness, and I guess he fell away for a while. But then he met him there again, and he was just emphasizing on the point that now in present interactions we're interacting with people, and it's history in the making. We don't know how this will impact someone's life. So of course we try to do our best. And that same person brought his girlfriend at the temple in Los Angeles, Rukmini Dwarkadish, and he promised that I'm going to show you Lord Buddha. So he showed the deities in LA, and she actually had a very intimate spiritual experience, and she had experience. She was crying, and she was very happy to see the deities of Rukmini Dwarkadish. So you never know. But thank you for this addition. That's nice. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada
Hare
ki.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes, Prabhu.
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, we can
Yes,
hear it.
yes,
Go
you because your class, to a certain extent, was all about cheating and being cheated and vice versa. And being you a book distributor,
Yeah.
my question would be, are you allowed to cheat the demons for the purpose of selling them books? That would be my question.
What do you think? You're also a book distributor.
Yes, I'm also a book distributor, and if you want to know what I think that the answer to such a question would be no.
Well, what's the reason? What's the main reason why not?
Because we condemned the world of cheaters and cheated. Srila Prabhupada would insist very much on condemning and describing the material world as not different from the world of cheaters and cheated. That's why book distributors should stay away from such an abomination, because it is an abominable world.
Yeah, I can agree to that. So in this case, we're not exactly cheating them directly, like really saying something that is not true, but we're trying to, you can say, very politely and attractively influence them into taking these books. So we can say something in support of our preaching that is relevant and relates to Krishna consciousness, relates to these books. For example, sometimes we can say that if you understand yourself, you can understand the whole world, or if you understand the absolute truth, you can understand the whole world. You can be more successful, practically speaking, in your day-to-day life. So you can say something that is leading people to Krishna, and that is also form a way of preaching, because ultimately people might not be ready to accept straightforward philosophy of Krishna consciousness if we start speaking about directly the quoting like
and that wouldn't be cheating. That would be being skillful.
Yeah, so that's, I guess that's something we do and continue doing, and we will continue doing. One time Srila Prabhupada was in Texas, and one devotee, very tall devotee, he got up and he asked Srila Prabhupada, how can we repay you? And Srila Prabhupada said, just remain obliged. And that just kind of stuck with me. And so one way that we show how we obliged is we follow the order of our Srila Prabhupada. And of course, one of the most important thing we do is we distribute this knowledge to others, distribute the holy name. And we can do it in a way that is attractive, relevant, and use our intelligence in preaching. And in some way, even if
yes, good use of your intelligence that can be used for the purpose of selling books. I totally agree.
And in some way, if I was going to just end with this, if we cross the line a little bit, I think it's not as bad. At least that's my opinion. That's something in a playful and polite way. I can see it as a part of lila, this fun that we can have with the public. So that's my opinion, but devotees can have different opinions. So, Hare Krishna, thank you.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.